Hello everybody and welcome back to another review by Redonkulous Gaming. I am Veedster and today I will be reviewing Raid on Kos. The story behind this game is that recently the expansion of the US has led to construction of more military bases along the Russian borders. This has led Russia to attempt to break the siege and invade the beaches of the Middle East through the gates of Yemen's coast. And before I continue on with the review, I wanted to take a quick moment to remind you that if you like the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel to get updates when new videos are uploaded, and visit our website at redonkulousgaming.com for more game news, and follow us on Twitter at RedonKGaming. All information can be found below. Raids on the Kos has been stated by the developer to be a real-time strategy game, but if a player looks underneath the hood, this game has a bit more to it. The game has the player start by landing on a beachhead, which is where the game gets its namesake Raid on Kos. Once the player takes the beachhead, their next objective is to capture a big village and set up a base of operations. This is where the uniqueness from Raid on Kos shows up. In order to capture a village or factory, the player needs foot soldiers to be near the capture point, and then they must wait for the capture wheel to convert, similar to how waypoints are captured in the Battlefield games. The maps have been set up to have big villages, small villages, and fuel factories. Each of these spots provide resources or additional population used to enhance army size. This is where the game strays from traditions of a typical RTS, because the player does not need to harvest resources, but earns them passively through maintaining control of the resource points. The player then needs to wipe out the opposing forces, and this requires proper resources and deployment of troops to win. However, the player has limits and will not have enough troops to cover every single resource point, and this will require strategic choices on which villages to defend and which villages to ignore. The graphics are simple, but are decently done for a single developer. There are obviously limitations due to the capabilities of one person, but these limitations do not detract from the gameplay and what the developer is trying to accomplish with this game. The playfield properly sets the tone for a desert combat environment, and damage to the battlefield when rockets or tanks are launched at the ground make for a feel that combat is occurring. At present, the game does not have music during gameplay, but provides sound effects and small statements when the player fights or moves their troops. There is not much to say about the sound effects besides they fit the game's military-oriented nature. The RTS aspect is extremely limited because at the time I tested out the game, there were only 3 foot soldiers, 3 vehicles, 2 types of aircraft, and only upgrades of the main base for defensive purposes. This simplifies the traditional tech tree and learning curve typically found in RTSs, but it left me with very few strategic options for the game. In the end, I maintained a few tanks and a handful of foot soldiers to take over villages and push the opposing force out, but just sent in jets to bomb the enemy's base and didn't waste time sending troops to their instant death while trying to fight a land war. The resources were not obvious as well. I had 3 resources to manage: money, fuel, and population. 2 of the 3 resources were easy to sort out, as you needed money to buy troops, and population limited how many troops you could produce. But the gas was not as obvious on its limitations or uses, as I always seemed to have a surplus of fuel. The foot soldiers were hard to spot on the map sometimes, and besides a subtle icon, it was hard to tell what composition of foot soldiers I had in my group. The controls were very finicky, from camera control to creating troops. There was no obvious indicator that I had clicked an icon to create troops, so it confused me, and sometimes I wasted resources creating too many of one type of troop. The camera controls were very tricky, where one moment the camera would pan super slow, and the next moment I was on the other side of the map. There was a constant urge to zoom out on the map to get a better feel of the combat zone, besides the one little piece I had visibility to, and it's kind of weird that the developer put a zoom for the mini-map and not the main map. However, the zoom for the mini-map doesn't zoom in or zoom out of the mini-map the way you think it does. Instead, it enlarges the mini-map altogether or shrinks it, but maintains the same zoom level of the whole playing field. The other control that was lacking was a quick troop selector assignment, and this led to some frustrations as I had to continually right-click drag to capture all the troops to move them in for attack. Raids on Coast has potential, but it depends on how the developer approaches it. I can see this game having the potential to become a truly strategic game where you can take key bases or create choke lanes by strategically taking over specific villages and not others. But right now the AI is lackluster and doesn't really defend bases they take, nor do they make much effort to take bases which you've already staked claims on. Also, the open field design with a river and bridge as a choke point on the south side of the map really didn't add much to strategy, because there were very few villages beyond the river and left much to be desired for the strategic aspect of the game. Save your resources, let your base turrets take care of itself, and just airbomb the opposing forces off the map. Being in early access and development, it wouldn't be fair to rate this game, as it could potentially shape up to be an amazing game. This is a game we at Redonkulous Gaming will keep an eye on and watch its progression.